Welcome to the Call Your Shot podcast, your weekly sports recap podcast where we break down the hottest headlines, dissect the latest injuries, and serve up our own hard-hitting analysis of the past week in sports. But that's not all. We're not just here to talk about the past, we're here to predict the future as well. On the Call Your Shot podcast, we boldly predict the outcomes of the upcoming week's games.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening. This is the Call Your Shot podcast with your hosts, Alex Harris and Drew Moore. Today's episode, football is finally here, filming on a Wednesday, and we finally got Thursday Night Football happening tomorrow, and then the full-fledged games happening this weekend. So in this episode, we're going to get into some of the award predictions that we have for the 2024-2025 season, as well as preview a few of those matchups that we have for this upcoming weekend. Before that, Drew has had a couple questions for you. You know, we had the news with Jamar Chase coming back to practice after doing the holdout with kind of like a lot of the receivers like Ayuk and CeeDee Lamb. I know we talked about it a little bit ahead of time. Do you have any concern about like kind of these elite receivers that a lot of people are drafting high in their fantasy leagues and stuff like that, not having a full training camp before going into the season? Do you have any injury concern or risk with them?
I mean, there's always going to be the injury concern going into the season. We saw what happened during the COVID year where, there wasn't that preseason and, a lot of players ended up going in and, trying to build up that tolerance to like a regular game, but nothing can simulate the real thing. No matter how hard you go at practice, no matter what you do in your return to sport protocols, there's still going to be that aspect of, okay, this is actually a game that guy on the other side is trying to rip my head off, and you can't simulate that. So that being said, is there increased injury risk? Yeah, 100%. But am I concerned that these guys are going to go out there and just tear their ACL? I don't think it's that drastic, but I do think that it is something to keep an eye on for sure.
For sure. All right, well, we can hop right into it. So do you have an award that you feel most confident in for this season, whether it be MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, anything like that? And we can get started there.
I really wanted to start with with my MVP, but then I'm having second guesses about it. Because I had alluded to it last week with it being Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm. That's who it was for me last year, and then you know what happened then.
Well, see, that's the thing. That's the thing. It's like we saw that before the injury, the Bengals are notorious for starting slow. So that was almost to be expected. But then, he also was going in with an injury as well too, with the calf and stuff, and he was downplaying the injury ultimately. And I was making a joke about, I would hold out too, and I probably wouldn't play too if I just got paid, made all that money. I count first too.
What's the motivation?
Exactly. So, but ultimately it ended up being an actual thing that lingered into the season, even though he said that he was fine, he wasn't, and then went out. And as weeks went on, it got better and better. But then he ended up having, I believe it was a flexor tendon rupture. Wasn't able to grip the ball. And so we ended up seeing the end of Joe Burrow for that season. But let's not forget what he was doing prior to that. He was putting up the same numbers that he was that same year that they went to the Super Bowl. And so if he would have stayed on that pace, which I believe that he can, that would have put him in the MVP conversation. And not to discount Lamar Jackson's MVP last year, but it was really survival of the fittest, honestly, because you couldn't give it to Mahomes because he finally had a down year in his context of a down year. And then you also had Josh Allen that was statistically actually playing pretty decently, but at the same time, he was costing his team games because there'd be the ball would bounce off the back of somebody's head in the end zone, and then it would deflect off somebody's shoe, and then it'd get intercepted in return for a touchdown. So there was a lot of bad luck. There was also some bad decisions as well too by Josh Allen. And then with Dak and everything too, sure he was having an MVP caliber season, and statistically on PFF he was one of the top 3 quarterbacks, but at the same time he wasn't at the caliber and playmaking as Lamar Jackson, and he also didn't have the wins on his side too. And his losses, they were very ugly too, which doesn't help with an award that is
And you lose to the
ultimately,
Cardinals.
well, that ain't great. Um, but with that award being, I don't want to say it's subjective, but you're trying to also handicap the committee as well and what the perspective is on it, which is why you never see like a running back. Well, we haven't really seen a running back win it in the past, 10 or so years or something like that. And then you haven't really seen any wide receivers. I don't think a wide receiver's ever won it. So like otherwise, that's why we have the offensive player of the year, which pretty much goes to any other position
Skill
other
player
than quarterback.
positions.
Yeah. So, but that's my 2 cents on it. I'm still gonna stick with my boy Ice Cold Joe
Okay.
Burrow.
Fair enough.
I'm doing it back-to-back seasons, so
Oh, we
hopefully
both
this
had
time,
Joe Burrow last year? I think, yes. That's
yeah.
crazy. Okay. I ain't gonna lie to you. I kind of wanted to go with your boy from last year and Josh Allen because I thought that with Stephon Diggs gone last year or this year, that he kind of would just kind of have like an MVP caliber season. But they kind of started to lean a lot more to the run with James Cook towards the end of the season. Plus, I really don't think they're gonna win that many games. I just still think they're gonna be a playoff team. I think they could honestly win the division. They're actually my division winner. But like you're talking about, I don't think they're gonna be on the upper echelon of teams. Which is why I'm going with the chalk and I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes. I think that the defense is not necessarily as good as last year. You did lose some key pieces to free agency, and then I think that this is going to be the best receiving core that Patrick Mahomes has had since his rookie and sophomore year when they had Tyreek Hill and prime Travis Kelce. With the additions of Xavier Worthy, they just signed Juju. You still have Rashee Rice there. And then Marquise Hollywood-Brown, even though he's coming into the season banged up, I just think that they actually have a good plethora of weapons, and they're going to be basically all in on trying to go for this three-peat and first time in Super Bowl history. So I feel like Patrick Mahomes, as long as everybody stays healthy, is going to be my MVP. And I did want to I did really want to go with Josh Allen though, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
I was laboring on Josh too, and it was looking mighty tempting as well. But at the same time, I was like, okay, who does he have on his team? Sure,
Keon
that
Coleman.
would make exactly that would set him up for success pretty well in terms of if they have a winning season and they make playoffs and stuff like that too, and the record looks good, and he's taking care of the ball. Like then it's like okay, like that team is only Josh Allen versus like the Bengals. You have Jamar Chase, you have Higgins, you got I don't want to say Zach Moss, but Chase Brown, Zach
Chase
Moss,
Brown.
they're there. And so there's other aspects of it that can influence the overall performance of Joe Burrow's season versus Josh Allen, where it's looking like it's just going to be pretty much so.
True, which could be good or bad for MVP numbers if he wants to
Yeah.
put it all together or not. But I just think that the high turnover rate and the volatility that we've been known for him to have, he's Superman, but like there's going to be those games where he kind of has those stud games against teams that you expect them to win against, like the Jets and things like that. And he's going to have high turnovers and stuff of that nature. So I just feel like for that reason, I couldn't fully pull the trigger. So defensive player of the year, we can move on to that next. Who you got?
Defensive player of the year. I mean, I want to talk about chalk. It's tough. I believe last year I went with Mike Parsons. If not, then I'm doing it again.
I'm going to say I'm going with
So,
Mike as well.
Yeah, because I mean, it was really his award last year, but I mean, it just kind of slipped away, and he got hurt, and then so he wasn't really on the field, and then so it was like, well, can you really give it to him if there's other players that are dominating every
Myles
single
Garrett was killing it.
Yeah, and then it was also we'll say TJ Watt too, who was dominating and pretty much single-handedly keeping the Steelers alive, and then so that kind of overshadowed Micah Parsons as well. So with that, I think that there's some added motivation coming into this season because he really does feel, and I think there's a lot of people also that feel like it is his award to lose. Granted, Myles Garrett, you literally cannot block him. So there's that aspect of it. And even if it doesn't always show up in the stats, in terms of the influence that he has on the play, it's second to none. However, I do think that there is a little bit of flugaziness with the Browns defense last year because how is it that you can be that drastically different on offense or on at home versus away?
Hey, man.
I think that their overall defense is more so somewhere in between as opposed to where it was or where it finished last year,
Borderline
being
historic.
like exactly. And I mean, ultimately it did come back to the pack, but I think that we're going to see a little bit more regression there because they did lose some key pieces in the linebacking core and in the secondary as well. However, they did also shore up some of those losses too. So we'll see if they can. I wouldn't necessarily say they shored it up, but they replaced this. But you can always hide a bad secondary with an elite offensive line. So I think that ultimately we'll see what happens with between those two. I don't really think that I mean TJ Watt's always in the running, but I don't really think that he's going to be in the running at the end of the season. He's probably going to get hurt just like his brother. And if Mike Parsons can stay healthy, then I think it's his own work.
Facts. I pretty much agree with you in that situation. The Cowboys defense, I don't think it's going to be necessarily as good as it was last year. I guess in the past couple of years, kind of, they lost some of the key additions as well. But I think that Micah Parsons is just elite and just causes havoc on the field. He's inconsistent at times, but I think that overall he has talked about it on his podcast and stuff like that. He is really trying to go for the Super Bowl and he is trying to go for the Defensive Player of the Year. That's something that he really wants. One person that I did see that was kind of like high on like the odds that was like, I almost thought of it as like a dark horse, but I guess he ended up being fourth or fifth. So you have like the key people that you'd expect. So the Micah Parsons, the Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, and TJ Watt. But what do you think about Max Crosby possibly having a chance to get about this? Very underrated defender. He's getting his flowers now over the past couple of years because everybody's been talking a lot more about him. But when you talk about like the best defenders in the league, you don't really necessarily bring him up, but should we as a potential defensive player of the year candidate?
I mean, I think so. And I mean, he's always it's a known thing that dude is
Talk about
dominant
motor.
on the D-line. Yeah. And like whenever it comes to whenever I guess back whenever it came to the Raiders defense, it was usually him.
They got
It
Christian
wasn't
Wilkins this offseason.
Oh, exactly. And that's the thing that's really going to help him out, and that could help him even win the sack title this year as well, because before you could just double team him
Every play.
and he'd still try and he'd still get to the quarterback. But now with Christian Wilkins, he's going to take up a lot of space. He's going to take up a lot of attention, and so you can't do that same kind of scheme against Max Crosby. It's going to be him on an island more often than not, and I think that that's going to bode pretty well. And again, talk about having a good D line to hide a bad secondary. Like their secondary is trash. But with that's a pretty damn elite defensive line that they have going out there. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. And I mean that is a nice pick for a dark horse, though. I do agree.
Facts. Fair enough. So we're moving on into Offensive Player of the Year. I'll get it started first, and I'm still mad because I'm going to stick with the same pick that I had last year that should have won. Boy, cheetah, Tyreek Hill. Ultimately, C-Mac ended up edging him out because Tyreek Hill was very much on pace for the 2K receiving yards up until, I think, week 13, and then he kind of started battling with those injuries, ended up missing week 15, and then didn't have a single game over 100 from week 14 until week 18. So I do think that him coming into this season fully healthy was kind of dealing with that hand injury in the offseason, but I think we both assume that he's going to be all right and is fully healthy going into this season. That would be my pick as long as him and Tua stay healthy. Again, I don't see why he wouldn't be in the running every single year. And he just got his extension too, and finished as number one voted by the NFL players as the best player in the NFL, which is very surprising to me because that was the first time that I've seen like the NFL top 100 where a quarterback did not win. So that was really surprising to me.
Yeah, I mean, I well for my fantasy team, I do hope that he stays healthy. I have him in I think just about all of my leagues. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, he talked about how he wants to get to 2,000 yards. He wants to break that marker, and he was on pace to do it, and there was no reason why he wouldn't have done it if he didn't stay healthy. It's not like oh, like he just started to regress. Like he was still, putting up numbers. It was just a matter of not being able to get enough separation like he usually would, and not being as explosive. So I like that pick. However,
Okay.
I now hear me out.
Oh boy.
Hear me out.
Yep.
So
Rico Dowdle.
okay. So while Tyreek Hill is an elite wide receiver,
Mm-hmm.
I believe
Mm-hmm.
that we could see a potentially historic season from AJ Brown. Okay.
J. Brown.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So are we forgetting that this man's was on pace for, well, actually he actually did set the record for the most consecutive games over 100 receiving yards.
Mm-hmm.
Like this man's was on a mission. Okay.
Jalen Hurts forgot how to
And
play football and only knew how to throw it to AJ Brown.
exactly. So like if we just take a look at his weekly stats here. So we go 79 yards against the Patriots. Okay, that's skewed. Okay, 29. Whoa, shit, okay, that's not great. Okay, let's bounce back. 131, 175, 127, 131, 135 or 137. 130, 66, 8 yards. We won't talk about that. Say shit. Stuff happens. 37. We don't talk about that. 114, 94, 84. We don't talk about that. 56.
Mm-hmm.
80, 53, and then, he didn't even really play in the game against the Giants last season. So, but that being said, this man is pretty much unguardable.
Mm-hmm.
He is as big as DK Metcalf, might even be bigger.
Nope.
Might be. Or DK's a little bit big.
Mm-hmm.
But same kind of build, and he can jump just as high as Justin Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
He can get all the contested catches just like Michael Thomas.
Where's Michael Thomas?
We don't have to talk about that. But
I think he's looking for work.
that's all right. He's a
Updated his
man.
LinkedIn profile.
But moral of the story is I think that this is gonna be a bounce back season. Jalen Hurts was playing hurt for the majority of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, they have Saquon back there now to where they can rely a little bit more on the run. But at the same time, I believe that the key to the Eagles offense going is going to be through AJ Brown. And what we saw last year is that man is literally unguardable.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I think that if they can, well, on top of adding Saquon Barkley, if they can utilize him in a way to where you have to have the defense respect that, then that's going to leave more opportunity for him over the top. Because last year with the running backs that they had, like, come on.
Hey, DeAndre Swift got his bag, bruh. He got a bag from the Bears. He was cooking.
He was. I don't know what to say about that. But anyways, that's who my pick is.
I don't hate it. He finished as the wide receiver 5 in fantasy last year. Yeah, I just think that he's going to be another great receiver. He's going to have another great season. He kind of transitioned from one of those 70 reception guys that ends up kind of being a deep threat on the Titans to this situation with the Philadelphia Eagles where he is the number one guy. I just think that you have just too many mouths to feed for him to be the upper echelon receivers with Devontae, Goddard still there. And they traded for Jahan Dotson, which I still don't know why the Commanders did that. I was upset about that. And then with Saquon, but I think that he is still going to be elite. So, I don't mind that pick at all. So, moving on, we can go. You said what?
I said you better not.
Moving on, we can go to Offensive Rookie of the Year. Do you have anything other than Caleb Williams?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I wanted to change it up, but I could not. So I'm glad that one of us did.
You are a homer.
I ain't a homer. I wanted to choose Jayden Daniels. I couldn't do it.
That's fair. Not a bad pick. So
don't you do
what? You know what I'm saying?
No, you did. Okay. There's only 3 picks. Are you gonna say Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I mean, come on.
Okay.
You talk about your daddy's son. That man's is one of the highest touted prospects that we've seen in quite some time at the receiver position. And I believe that he is going to live up to the hype. we've seen that Kyler, when he's in an offense where he's healthy, he can carry a wide receiver one and then some. Um, each wide receiver that's played with Kyler, uh, each time that he's been healthy, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
he's been able to carry them over 1,000 yards receiving. And I believe that Marvin Harrison can get to that mark. I think his projection in like Vegas odds are like around 1,000 yards or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he can get over 1,000 yards, especially because they're going to have an absolutely terrible defense. It's going to be one of the worst in the league. I don't think it's going to be quite historically bad, but I do think that they're going to struggle a lot to stop a nosebleed.
Got Buddha.
With that
That's all he needs.
well, okay.
Buddha and
Buddha
prayer.
against the world. Exactly. Go hand in hand. But I do think that with that aspect in mind, they're going to need to throw the ball because they're going to be likely to be down a lot. And they are projected to be one of the higher scoring teams in the league. And when Kyler came back last year, it was kind of cooking. Like
Oh yeah.
he was able to carry that offense and turn them from like a bottom tier, mid tier offense into, I wouldn't say a top tier, like a upper middle class
Above average.
kind of offense. And I mean, with Trey McBride out there too, that's going to draw some attention. And outside of Trey McBride, I guess James Conner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I feel like who else? Like there's not really anybody that's out there
True.
that's going to get that attention, or that's going to take away his targets. He's not going to have as much attention on him. So he's going to be able to dominate the dojo like none other. And I believe that we're going to see another historic season from a rookie wide receiver.
Yeah. So recent rookie wide receivers, we've had the Garrett Wilson, we've had Jamar Chase. I just think that if he said that he thinks he's going to go over 1,000 yards, I think if he gets like 1,100 yards and like 7 touchdowns, but Caleb Williams has like 25 touchdowns and 3,500 yards, I think that they're just going to give the nod to the quarterback, especially with how, even though that Marvin Harrison Jr. has been like an elite prospect from a wide receiver position, but like Caleb Williams was one of those generational talents that people are saying high prospects since like, I don't know, Trevor Lawrence or whatever. So I think that if the Bears actually do have a good season, which a lot of them, even us, are kind of expecting them to have, in a borderline playoff team, some people have them as a dark horse Super Bowl candidate, which I think is kind of ridiculous. But they did give him the perfect situation. You want to talk about what Justin Fields had? Like he had the polar opposite. We got Keenan Allen, got DJ Moore still there. I got Roma Dunze, you got Cole Kmet, and they added running backs and stuff like that. So I think that Caleb Williams just has just a perfect situation going into this season. So that would be my pick. I did want to say Jaden Daniels, but I don't think that he has any weapons outside of Terry McLaurin, especially, like I said, the Commanders traded away Jahan Dotson, who was a very solid number 2 receiver for them, to the Philadelphia Eagles in division trade, which doesn't make any sense to me. But if I had to choose a number 2, it'd probably be him with Marvin Harrison as a close second or third. So that's pretty solid right there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, my main thing too is like, there's just so much hype around Caleb Williams, and like obviously he was great and everything, but I just think that whenever you get this much hype around an athlete, it's very hard to live up to that. And how often are we 100% correct on these top overall picks, right?
Every year for
Josh Rosen. Yeah, Josh Rosen. Never forget.
You think Caleb Williams is going to be Josh Rosen?
I'm not saying he's going to be Josh Rosen, but I'm just saying, there's more often than not we're wrong about these, highly touted prospects coming out of college, and we're jumping the gun, saying like this guy is basically Peyton Manning 2.0 mixed with Tom Brady, and I'm like, okay, like let the guy play an NFL game first, and then we can, like, against NFL competition, and then we can actually judge him. Sure, he's making throws against second string corners and
Caleb Williams.
Backups and stuff. I don't hate him. I just think we need to have more realistic expectations for my guy.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So I'll get us started here with Coach of the Year. did have a couple options. Last year, I ended up going with Dan Campbell, who I think would have won it if it wasn't for the fact that the Browns like somehow were able to like play like 4 or 5 different quarterbacks and like into the season with Joe Flacco and still go like 11-6. So they ended up having to give it to Kevin Stefanski. So in this situation, I'm gonna go with Raheem Morris of the Falcons. I think that the Falcons are going to be a much improved team, especially with Kirk Cousins and all the additions of these that they've had there over the past couple of years. I think that now that you have a competent quarterback that can throw them the ball to Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson and everything like that, and even Darnell Mooney, who I think is going to get a good third or fourth option. I just think that they're going to be a playoff team. I think they're going to win the division, and I think they're going to probably win 10 games. And if that happens, I think Raheem Morris has to be the coach of the year. Former Rams offensive coordinator. I think he's going to, open up that offense a lot. So that would be my pick. So who you got?
Wow. Interesting. I mean, it's low hanging fruit, for being honest.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay, of course it is. Could have said Chicago's head coach.
No, I mean, because they at least have potential to be good. I don't think that matters. But all the Bears fans right now are just like sending an email, but that's okay.
Right. I'm gonna clip all of these, Drew.
But no, like I think that Raheem Morris, he is a very good coordinator, and now that doesn't always translate to being a great head coach, as we saw with Arthur Smith, because Arthur Smith was one of the best coordinators that's out there, and we saw what happened when he was on the Falcons. Now, Raheem Morris is coming from the McVay tree, which is good. We like that. And so does Kirk Cousins. But at the same time, he said that he's going to be running a lot of schemes that they were doing in LA, and they're going to have. I think they said that they're going to use Drake London more in the Cooper Kupp role and everything too, which is why I've been pretty high on him. Not only that, because he also doesn't have, Desmond Ridder throwing in the ball, which helps. But
most definitely,
I do think that that he does have a very good, clear shot, I should say, to winning that award. New team, and you have all these all-star players. But I think realistically, for him to get the coach of the year, like he's gonna have to win the division and probably win at least 10, 11 games.
Check.
So we'll see if he can do that, and if he can, then I think it's right there for him. But again, we said the same thing about Dan Campbell last year too.
Yeah, some BS.
And I mean, ultimately, there was a bunch of candidates that probably should have had their name in the hat, or had their name in the hat. Yeah, that's what I meant. Name in the hat. And then they just kind of got. I
mean, Kevin Stefanski just kind of, did win, like I said, 11 games playing eeny, meeny, miny, mo, a quarterback, and somehow making it work with. So,
I mean, Ryan's should have won too, though. Like he had offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year,
and probably a lower projected win total than the Browns did coming into that season, especially with Deshaun Watson top.
It was like a 5. It was 5.5 or so win total. And end up making the playoffs and winning a game in the playoffs. Like, come on, like that. Even though it's a regular season award, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, all that to be said, not a bad pick, but it's low hanging fruit. My pick is going to be your boy, Mike McDonald.
Oh wow.
And this is all based on, like I said before, there's a few different criterias that need to go into play.
Are you becoming a Seahawks fan in front of our eyes, Drew? Like slowly but surely, you picked them over the 49ers to win the division, and now you have their coach as the coach of the year.
I mean, it's got to correlate, right?
Okay.
You can't just be like, I think they're gonna win the division and then not have him win coach of the year, right? Because if you win that division, like you were saying yourself, that's a top tier division.
If Kyler is healthy and the Cardinals are competent, I think it's the best division of football.
Potentially. And so with that being said, the trophy's right there for him. New head coach, new offensive scheme.
Coming into a
And
good team, though. Like, you're going to have to win, like you said, like at least like 3 or 4 additional. That's like an 11, 12 win team. I'm loving it if you're saying that you think we're going to win 12 games.
I think all he needs to do is win the division. And I think that is 100% in play. I don't think that the award is going to go to like well, for example, Andy Reid. So like it doesn't always go to the best head coach. It always goes to the coach that's in the best situation to show improvement. And with the Falcons, there is that aspect of it. Granted, it's like, anybody. I feel like anybody could have done a better job than what Arthur Smith is doing out there. Like you can get some kids playing Madden and do a better job.
I mean, the Falcons only won one less game, I think, than the Seahawks did last year with Desmond Ridder.
Yeah, and so but they also should have won a lot more games than that. and I won't go down that rabbit hole. Anyways, moral of the story is Mike Macdonald. We saw what he was able to do with the defense for the Ravens last year, making them a top 1 or 2 or 3 team on the defensive end.
Yeah.
And he really turned around not Kyle Williams. Why am I missing him? Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton's career, and made him kind of like a utility player in the secondary, to where he was kind of mixed around all throughout.
To do it all.
Exactly. And so then the Seahawks have a lot of talent back there.
Yeah.
And a lot of raw talent too. It's not just
and we young.
Well, we got Leonard Williams.
He's only like 29, 30. It's fine.
He's like anyways,
D tackle. It's okay.
Yeah. So they do have a lot of young talent in the secondary, and that can mimic that Kyle Hamilton role as well. And I mean, they also bring in Grubb, who was able to have Michael Penix be, a sneaky top 10 pick that nobody really predicted he was going to go to the Falcons, but he was able to be a top 10 pick. And then he also had Romeo Odunze, who was also a top draft pick as well too. So I think that if you're able to have a heavy pass offense with a offense that has DK Metcalf, Geno Smith is Geno Smith. But he
was an MVP candidate 2 years ago.
Relax.
He was.
Blind squirrel basically finding that.
The season that Dak had last year is borderline almost what Geno had 2 years. Not as many passing yards, but it's okay.
But I think that that he can also turn the offense around, and he wants to use Kenneth Walker as well. And I think that's a better option than using Zach Charbonnet, even though Zach Charbonnet is okay. But it's like, why would you minimize like your highly touted running back that you are kind of building your team around, like the future around, and then use Zach Charbonnet instead? Makes no sense to me. So I believe that he will be smarter than Pete Carroll and not be as hard-headed either. We love Pete Carroll. He's great. But sometimes you gotta cut the cord.
So let me try to get you on record here. So you have the Seahawks beating the 49ers in the division. You have the Seahawks winning the division in one of the better divisions in the NFL. Do you have them as a potential number 1 seed in the NFC? Or maybe a little playoff bye or something?
No.
Okay.
It's not delusional.
Not that far?
No. I still think that it's going to be the Eagles that gets the 1 seed in the NFC. But I do like the Seahawks quite a bit this year. Sure.
Seahawks fan. It's kind of ironic because like the Seahawks are starting to come back up, and the Saints are continuing to go back down to their depths of mediocrity.
I'm just pointing out.
So am I. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm just pointing out your stats. So okay, fine. Moving on. So that is our award predictions for this upcoming season. We can start to get into previewing some of these games that we have coming up. Specifically going with Thursday Night Football, as we have the Chiefs taking on the Ravens in the AFC Championship rematch. Got some new faces. Hollywood, as we mentioned, is not going to be playing. He's already been ruled out. But we do have Derrick Henry as the new big addition for the Ravens in this upcoming season. So, Drew, who do you have winning this game? And what are your expectations, I guess, for both teams going into the seasons? Both of them have very high expectations within the AFC and kind of Super Bowl aspirations. So, Chiefs going for the first three-peat Super Bowl history, NFL history, and the Ravens are just trying to, break through.
I mean, a couple things here. The biggest thing with Lamar Jackson going into the season is, can he win the big one? And that's going to be kind of labeled all over him for the rest of his career if he can't. Because, you can win all the MVPs and all the awards that you want. But at the end of the day, it comes down to rings.
You got to face Michael Jordan in the playoffs, though.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the thing. It's like, I think that the Chiefs were very fortunate as well too to like in some of the situations that they've been put in to get to the Super Bowl, and a couple different scenarios where against the Bengals a few years back, their linebacker hit the dude out of bounds, and then that
don't push me when I'm 5 steps out of bounds.
Exactly. And
I'm
then
Patrick Mahomes, don't touch me.
End up winning the game like that, and then against the Bills, it's I feel bad for some of these teams because one small, like literally 13 seconds difference or one instance difference, like you don't hit the guy out of bounds, you actually tackle somebody and you don't just let them just right up the sideline. And those franchises teams are completely different. And we're not even talking about Patrick Mahomes going and sticking together with Travis Kelce. Maybe Travis Kelce's already retired and stuff. But all that to be said, I think that the biggest thing for Lamar Jackson is, if he can at least make it to the Super Bowl, I think that is going to be a bigger step, because then it's like, okay, we know that we can at least get past the Chiefs, because we know the Chiefs are going to be there. Let's be honest. So we at least know that we can get past the Chiefs. And because that's the biggest bugaboo that everybody has in the AFC is,
the Bengals the only team that can beat them, that have beat them.
Like, they at least have that in their mind. It's like, okay, if we get there, we have a chance. Versus other teams, they're like, okay, we got there now. Like, well, damn.
Hope somebody else knocks them off.
So, and then with the Chiefs, like we've been saying, this is one of the best teams that Patrick Mahomes has had, and as if he needed more help. He has the guy to take off the top and Xavier Worthy. He has Travis Kelce underneath, as always. And he's got Isaiah Pacheco, like a cocaine addict out there.
Come on, we got your boy Rasheed,
Yeah,
and we got Juju back on the team too. Look at that.
We don't got to talk about Juju, but
hey,
leading
receiver.
He is on the team if need be.
I think he is listed as like the 5th string behind Rasheed, Xavier, Hollywood. Hollywood's not even playing; he's still behind Hollywood. Anyway, we love you, Juju.
But yeah, and so I think that it's going to be, obviously it's going to be a close game. It's only a 3-point spread, so basically it's even. And with it being in Kansas City,
say it with me. Chiefs by 4.
It's tough because the Ravens did lose some key pieces on the defensive end, but everywhere that you look, it's still pretty solid. Like, they still got Hamilton out there. They still have that was the main thing that they lost. Can't think of the linebacker's name, but it's not coming to me. But they still have Roquan Smith, that they got from the Bears. Still got Kyle Van Noy. Still got Humphreys at DB. But their interior, their front.
You're talking about Patrick Queen.
Yeah. Patrick Queen. Yeah. So
there we go.
So they lost him, and he was their guy that that would call out all the plays, that would call out all the offensive schemes and everything. And they don't have that guy. So it'll be interesting to see how they adjust. And also, they don't have Mike Donald either, the future coach of the year. So it'll be interesting again to see how they handle that going forward. So
How big of a impact do you think having an elite running back, because like the Ravens kind of, I guess you could say similarly to the Eagles, have always been known for having a great offensive line and having a great run game. They were able to be like top 3 in rushing the past 3 years with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and Mark Ingram. And now you add Derrick Henry, who is, probably past his prime, but still the Yeti and still 6'3", 240. How much of an impact do you think that he's going to make for the Ravens and I guess help Lamar out, who I guess he said going into this training camp, Lamar tried to lose weight. A couple years ago, he wanted to gain weight. So I don't know exactly what they're trying to do with that situation. But yeah, how much of an impact do you think that Derrick Henry is going to make for the team? And do you think he is a major upgrade compared to, the J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards of the world? Or is it just, already just a good running scheme? You can put pretty much anybody in there.
I mean, it's a Harbaugh offense, so they're going to want to run the ball regardless of what's going on in the game. And the where I have a problem with this year's Ravens team is on the offensive line. They don't have the same guys there as they did before. And I think it's really going to show in their overall offensive game plan. Because one, sure, you have Andrews back and he's healthy. You got Zay Flowers, but Zay Flowers is about our height, and he weighs about $150.
Rashad Bateman has not broke through.
Exactly.
Nelson Aguilar can't catch.
Exactly. Unlike Aguilar.
Yeah.
Aguilar. Anyways, so per Pro Football Focus, they're going from being a top 5 offensive line to number 15 offensive line, which may not seem like a big leap. But when you're going from top 5 and you led the league in rushing yards and in EPA per play with rushing games, that is going to be a massive difference, especially, which this also makes no sense to me, but somehow their offensive run blocking is 21st in the league going into this year's projected. So I think that's going to be a massive difference. Sure, Derrick Henry is used to running against stacked boxes and everything. And then you also have the illusion of Lamar Jackson, which helps.
Exactly.
But at the same time, if you only really have to play for the run, and is Derrick Henry aging as well?
Yeah. People think some people are saying that he's gonna have like 20 touchdowns.
That's what they're saying. They're like, it's in play, and I was like, I mean, technically everything is in play until the season starts. So, but I think overall the main thing I'm going to be looking at is, as always, the offensive and defensive line matchups, as well as the bet splits and everything too. Bet splits basically even, it's like 55-45 or so. But looking at the offensive and defensive line breakdowns here, the offensive line for the Ravens have a negative 7% disadvantage when it comes to the pass and a 10% advantage when it comes to the run. However, I am not all that sold on that aspect of it because of the adjustments that the Kansas City Chiefs have made in their secondary and also in the linebacking core as well. They have a healthy Chris Jones who can stuff the run. I believe that they brought somebody else in there. I don't remember who it was. But I believe that that's ultimately going to be one of the differences in the game is going to be on that offensive and defensive line matchup there.
And it's weird though too. I don't know if if they get nervous or the coaching staff just wants to try to beat the Chiefs at their own game, or like we talked about, the Bengals seem to be the only team that have had playoff success in them, and they have the firepower to basically throw against them with Jamar Chase, as we talked about with T. Higgins, and even when you had Joe Mixon. But in these teams, like we just saw it in the playoffs last year, the Bills and James Cook and Josh Allen, they were averaging 6-7 yards to carry, and then they veered away from the run and they started throwing the ball, and then that's when things started to fall apart. Same thing with the Ravens. People are like, okay, they're perfectly built to beat the Chiefs. They run the ball down your throat. The Chiefs can't stop the run. and then they completely stopped running the ball. So like, I mean, I feel like if you have, and Derrick Henry talked about it too in some of the podcasts recently, he was like, I wish I was on that team in the playoffs last year because like I would have, we would have ran the ball. So are they actually going to run the ball? Are they going to have actually a good scheme against them? I guess it'll find out tomorrow. But are they going to stick to their guns, or are they going to try to beat the Chiefs to their own game? And you can't. So
Exactly. And that's like the Michael Jordan effect too. Like you start doing some crazy shit because you know that you aren't as good as them. And so you try and do anything and everything that you can to make up for that, and then you play outside of your game instead of focusing on just sticking to your game. Because last year we saw like they could not stop the run. They could not stop it no matter what.
It was their Achilles heel.
Yeah. And so that's the main reason why the Ravens have an advantage on the ground, is because last year what we saw is that they literally couldn't do anything about it. But I believe that this year, with a newly vamped secondary and linebacking core, I think that the Chiefs will be able to take this game home. I'm going with the money line because I hate those short spreads. So that's
True.
where I'm headed.
Probably is safe. Maybe we shouldn't mess with that this year so far.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got the
Unless
Chiefs winning too.
you
I
want to.
I'm by 4. Chiefs by 4. So I'm taking it with the spread. All right. Cool. So moving on, we could touch on the Packers-Eagles game that we have on Friday in like a real game. So the NFL is moving over to Brazil for their first game, an international game of this season. So it looks like instead of doing the 2 Monday Night Football games that they do during week 1, they're doing this Friday night game. So seeing how that works on Peacock. So we got the Packers taking on the Eagles. I don't know about you, but I'm not sold on the Packers this year. I think we talked about it a little bit last week. I think that it was kind of like a borderline best case scenario for them last year. And I don't know. I think Jordan Love is good. He got his bag, he got his paper, and they did try to make some additions. They didn't really take too many additions from the wide receivers, but they brought in Josh Jacobs to spell Aaron Jones, who is now with the Vikings, and then you still have A.J. Dillon. So I know that you hate Josh Jacobs as it is, but people are saying it's an upgrade. That's absolutely disgusting. Okay, I don't want to hear it. But yeah, the receivers haven't been able to stay healthy, so they're going to have a full season with Christian Watkins, how everybody else is going to play. So I think we're both pretty high on the Eagles, but I would have the Eagles winning this game. It's a neutral territory, supposedly, so the Eagles are currently 2.5-point favorites. I would take them, I guess, money line, but I would take them against spread too, honestly. So what are your thoughts on the Eagles and Packers going into the season, and who you got winning the game?
Yeah, Eagles by a million. Like
that's a close spread. I know the Packers finished very strong last year, but 2.5 is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and that's the thing that scares me too. Is like, why is it only 2? That's what scares me mostly. But at the same time, I live and breathe. There's no way that as currently constructed, that Eagles team is even with that Packers team.
Jair Alexander about to shut down AJ Brown, Drew. All right, all those things that you're talking about, you going?
Yeah.
You know.
The main thing too is the absolute mismatch on the offensive and defensive line for the Packers and for the Eagles as well. Per Pro Football Focus, as always, the disadvantage that the Packers have is negative 23% on pass blocking. Sure, they have a nice 10% advantage there. But if we do recall last year, with the Eagles being one of the worst secondaries in the league, how is it that you're going to have a negative 23 disadvantage going up against the pass? So pressure. I think that exactly. I think that that's going to show coming up in this game, because whenever Jordan Love is under pressure, his stats note that. And as we know, with my boy Jalen Hurts, pressure ain't a thing. Pressure builds diamonds. All right,
1-6 towards the end of the season, and lost to Baker Mayfield and the Bucks. He's been hurt past 2 years. When he made the Super Bowl 2 years ago, he was hurt in the Super Bowl on his shoulder. That's why he couldn't throw it. Jalen Hurts pissed me off.
Why? He didn't do anything.
I don't know.
Anyways, but so for example, Jordan Love's passer rating with a clean pocket, 102. That's great. That's solid.
Mhm.
Jordan Love's passer rating under pressure, 83. Not good.
Not
good,
bad.
Bob. Not good. And so I believe that, again, like I said before, the differences that they have on the offensive line versus the defensive line, as well as the matchups in the secondary, it's one of those things where, yeah, they have all these highly talented players on the offensive end. So we have so many options. Okay, but also, one, are they ever healthy? No, they're never healthy.
They're healthy right
Two,
now. Well, Romeo Dobbs is questionable, but don't worry about that.
exactly, exactly.
Jalen Reed's healthy.
And then
Christian Watson's healthy. New hamstrings.
for now. But then it's also a matter of like they're not unchallenged. What's the term I'm looking for?
Unproven.
Unproven. Because we've seen flashes, Watson getting out there going like 4 or 5 touchdowns and stuff like that, and then Dobbs, he was Aaron Rodgers, a little play toy for a little bit there too. Pause. But then like after that, like
Mhm.
we saw them here and there, but there's not really any consistency.
True.
And I'm still not a believer in Jordan Love. I gotta see it again. Sure,
Okay.
he did it for a few games, but if you look at the talent that he was playing against, it wasn't all that much competition. Yeah. So I think that if he can show me it again,
Mhm.
I'll believe it. And
Okay.
then we know how I feel about Josh Jacobs. So
So, are you safe to say you're taking the Eagles?
by a million.
Okay, fair enough. Any other games in this upcoming weekend that you are interested in?
Um, hmm. The I not from like a betting standpoint,
Mhm.
but I think that the Falcons and the Steelers game will be interesting to see those two offenses and how that ends up playing out.
Mhm.
If if Mike Tomlin can finally,
Russell to the moon.
lose, if he can have a losing season for the first time in his career, or if he's gonna somehow miraculously make it back there again. We'll see what happens with that. And then we also have my Saints. They're favored in this game, and it'll probably be the last game that they're favored. Um,
I don't even think they should
but
be favored, to be honest with you.
if they're playing against the Panthers, come on, please.
Hey, man, Deontay Johnson, hey.
Yep, exactly. But one last thing too, I think that I am kind of interested in taking the Titans against the Bears. Not gonna lie. It is 3.5, and we have all of this hype around Caleb Williams
Mhm.
and Romeo Dunze
Mhm.
as well. And it's curious to me that the line is moving away from the Bears, even
Mhm.
though they're getting the majority of the bets. Now, I'm no mathematician or
Don't worry about it.
statistician,
It's fine.
but that smells kind of fishy to me.
Mhm.
So, in that sense, I kind of like the Titans there. Might pull the trigger, might not. I'm not sure on that.
The Titans
Other than
have
that,
made some, slow key additions. They signed Tony Pollard. They brought in Calvin Ridley to be along with DeAndre Hopkins, and they picked up the cornerback from the Chiefs. Basically took him
yeah,
away. So they had kind of a revamped defense and some offensive weapons. So they could. If Will Levis wants to, I think this is his prove it year. So
yeah,
we'll see.
yeah. I in Will Levis we trust. He is basically Brett Favre minus the talent. But
He got the arm.
yeah, exactly. That's all that matters. Yeah.
One thing that I did
So
want to get on with you, though, was I think we kind of talked about it. You weren't too high on the Rams this year. What do you think about that Rams-Lions? That was a great playoff game. So I think it was the division also, like the winner ended up facing the 49ers, ended up being the Lions. But the Rams kind of had like a very surprising season last year, very low expectations. And then we ended up having the emergence of Puka and Kyron. And then now you have all of them healthy with Cooper Kupp going into the season. So a lot of people have them as probably one of the top 5 offenses in the league. So how do you feel about the Rams this year? And do you feel like they could kind of upset the Lions going into week 1?
Do I think they can upset them? No. Do I think they're going to be terrible? No. I think they'll be a middle of the pack team.
You think they're going to regress?
I don't think. Yeah, on offense for sure. I mean, there's only well, I mean, I guess you still can technically go up, but I think that there's only downside from their last year's performance, seeing as how they were not even projected to come anywhere near the playoffs. On top of that, nobody knew about Puka. Nobody knew that was going to happen.
I did.
So that's going to regress as well. Sure, you have Cooper Kupp coming back, which is great for them. But at the same time, you still have you got your boy out there, Matthew Padford, and then I refuse to believe that Kyron Williams is good at football.
Bro, you're just mad because you were a year early on him.
Well, whatever. I don't like it, regardless. But yeah, I don't. Their offense is gonna be great, honestly. Like, if we're being like all jokes aside, their offense is gonna be pretty good. My main thing is the loss of Aaron Donald, and the impact that he had. Not only did he lift other players' floors, he also just impacted those teams and their schemes that they had to run. They pretty much had to throw it out whenever they would go against the Rams, because they knew that scheme's not going to work against Aaron Donald, and only against Aaron Donald's not going to work. And so you literally had to have offensive coordinators, like, they're staying up at night trying to game plan for somebody that's unblockable, and one of the most dominant D linemen we've seen in our time. So I think that there is not really a replacement for that. They tried to replace him by drafting just a bunch of different D linemen and defensive players.
It'll work.
Exactly. And so, and what some folks were saying too with Kobe Turner, how he had like a pretty great season last year. He had a PFF grade of 83, but they were saying that was mainly because he's playing opposite of I almost called him Njoku, of Aaron Donald, because you have all that attention going to Aaron Donald, and you can just basically run free on the other side, and that's gonna, like I was saying, uplift everybody over there. Now going back to the Lions, their offensive line is supposed to be one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league. And with that being said, this is almost hysterical how much of an advantage that they have in this game. When it comes to the running game, they have a 30% advantage, and then when it comes to the passing game, they have a 30% advantage on the offensive line versus defensive line, and then they have a 54% advantage when it comes to offensive line versus defensive line when it comes to running the ball. So, is that good?
It's tight.
Whereas the Rams, you have a negative 9 and negative 4 respectively. So, I mean, it is a short spread for sure, but at the same time, it is. I'd probably rather go with like a team total over for the Lions as opposed to like money line or anything like that, because it's just scary. And I don't like week 1 favorites.
Fair enough.
So yeah,
I think we have a similar thinking. I think I'm a little higher on the Rams than you are, but I think the Lions are going to be elite this year again. The only thing is, they did lose a couple of receivers, so basically it's just like, obviously we know Amon-Ra is great, we know Sam Laporte is great, but is Jameson Williams finally going to step up and be that number 2 and that elite, basically, burner that they drafted him to be? Had the injuries, had the post-suspension. Okay, all right. Anyway, now we want to talk any more about them. Moving on, the last one that I did want to get into was the Monday Night Football game that we're going to have to finish week 1, which is going to be the New York Jets and San Francisco 49ers. 49ers, can't really talk about teams breaking through. They've been there and then the Super Bowl the past 5 years. They've been there, I think, 3 times. They've always been in the NFC Championship pretty much, and they just can't seem to beat the Chiefs when it comes down to it. And then the Jets having Aaron Rodgers returning, basically kind of like a similar situation with the Falcons. They've had terrible quarterback play over the past few years. Then you had Aaron Rodgers get hurt last season, and now you have your weapon still with Garrett Wilson, with Breece Hall. They got Mike Williams and everything like that. So what are your thoughts on that game? And do you feel like the Jets are going to actually be a playoff team this year?
It. I hate that everybody is saying, the Jets are gonna win the Super Bowl this year. Like, this is gonna be amazing. This is the time. They
Are
said the
they?
same thing last year, and it took 4 plays. So
Okay.
I think that they are going to have
That could be with anybody, though. Anybody loses their elite quarterback,
well, to the Browns.
Huh?
What happened with the Browns? The Browns.
They didn't have an elite quarterback to begin with. I don't think that Deshaun Watson is elite.
He used to be.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Mhm.
but yeah, so I think that so disrespectful. Sorry, I was looking at the Pro Football Focus matchup here, and they have a 39.4 grade for Aaron Rodgers. Played 4 plays. It's like
That's rude.
Anyways, his passer rating under pressure 39.6.
He must have talked shit about them. All right.
Exactly. But yeah, I think that obviously the Super Bowl is within the realm of possibilities because you have an elite defense and you have
For the Jets?
Yeah.
Okay.
For the Jets. You have an elite defense and you're able to be a serviceable offense with the quarterback play that you had last year. So, and Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to be Hall of Fame Aaron Rodgers. He just has to be, lukewarm
Average.
Exactly. Maybe slightly above average. But I think that even just decent quarterback play makes them a playoff contender for sure. And then above average quarterback play makes them a Super Bowl contender. So I think that if their offense is going to run through Breece Hall, they already kind of talked about that. We're going to see how Aaron Rodgers likes that because, he likes all the attention on him. And he likes the offense to be driven by him too. So it'll be interesting to see if they're going to give him the reins to audible out or to change the play, or if they're just going to just
make it the Breece show.
Yeah. So, and then as far as this game goes, I do kind of like. It's so gross.
4.5.
It's two popular teams, like two very public teams that, like I don't want to take the Jets because they're very overhyped. But also the 49ers are the 49ers, and everybody likes the 49ers because they know that they're good. They won the Super Bowl. They made a Super Bowl last year. They could have a Super Bowl hangover. So like I'm probably gonna end up going with the Jets. But at the same time, the one thing that backs that up is that the 49ers have all these players that are kind of holding out. You have Trent Williams who's holding out.
Everybody's back.
Contract.
Everybody's back.
Well, just in time, and we'll see
Exactly.
again, like we talked about before, how
you said there was no concern.
No concerns about injury. Concerned about performance for sure, because they don't have that chemistry built up with the team. Sure, they've been playing there for a minute, but at the same time, you still gotta get things clicking for the new season. So I think that'll be interesting. And I do kind of lean the Jets, and I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but this will be. I think I'm gonna have one conspiracy bet each week. This is gonna be my conspiracy. Is that
let's hear it.
The NFL wants to see the Jets succeed because it's been so long and it's a big market, and that's going to bring more attention to the NFL, as well as it being Aaron Rodgers.
Then say that the Jets win.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But if they do win, that also helps my case for the Seahawks though too this year, because then we're going to start off with a bad foot. Seahawks win. Pretty good.
Yeah, I hope we can beat Bo Nix and the Broncos and your boy Sean Payton.
You guys should have no problem with that.
I would agree with you.
I will. I'll take the +4.
Okay, I'll take the -4. I'll take the 49ers. I think that even if the Jets are a good team this year, I still think that the 49ers are the team to beat within the NFC. I think that I think the Eagles are, great. I think they'll probably be the number 2 or number 3 seed. But I mean, the 49ers are basically running it back with the same team. And I think that as the season progresses, as long as they stay healthy, which somehow miraculously they did last year, even though Debo did get banged up midway through the season, but they were still, where did they end up at the end of the season? In the Super Bowl. And unfortunately, we were saying prayers up to Ricky Pearsall, who, over the last weekend did end up getting robbed and ended up getting shot and rushed to the hospital. They said he was fully released and stuff, and now he's recovering. I think he's going to start the season pretty much on the NFI list, or a non-football injury, if I say technically the IR, but they said that he should be making a full recovery. But I think that, Yad Ayuk signed his deal at the strike of midnight. We had the extension with Trent Williams, so your key pieces, you already had Debo locked up, you already had Christian locked up, and Purdy's still making $900,000 a year as a quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers for at least one more season. So I mean, this is basically their window, because starting next year, they have to pay Brock Purdy. They would have to either pay or trade Debo, and I refuse that you can't print them any more money. It's over. It's like the Golden State Warriors at the end of that run, but they haven't won a championship yet. So it's Super Bowl or bust for the 49ers.
That's pretty much facts.
So
I think that also in this game, I'm liking the under as well. With it being a primetime game, we saw how well primetime games did last year. And then also on top of that too, 77% of the handle and 51% of the bets are on the under, and also the line has dropped 3 points already in favor of the under. I love it. I'm taking that one.
You said 1960, 6-3.
I mean, with two solid defenses, teams that like to run the ball, it's
two elite offenses, supposedly.
Well, yeah, that like to run the ball.
Yeah. Christian McCaffrey to the moon.
Potentially, but probably not against this secondary or D line, I should say.
100 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns.
Anyways, yeah. Do you got anything else there, sir?
No, that's pretty much everything that I was looking for. Obviously, the Cowboys and Browns would probably be the only close matchup. I still take the Cowboys in that situation. Cleveland is favored it, but I think that Cleveland is at home, so I think it's pretty much just a pick 'em at that point. So I would still choose the Cowboys in that situation.
Yeah, I have no opinion on that.
Okay.
It is
the Browns are just gross.
I'd take the Browns in that game.
Okay.
Looking at the bet splits,
that'll be our bet. Boom.
Yeah. I mean, why are the Browns favored against the Cowboys?
I don't know, but I'll take my 2.5 gladly.
Okay, I will take the money line.
No, I'll take my 2.5.
Yes, money line. That'll be good. Yeah, oh my gosh. Oh yeah, absolutely. Browns, 32% of the money, whereas the Cowboys are getting 68% of the money. And
that's
the line is more towards the Browns.
That's because they don't know about Rico Dowdle yet. But they gonna find out. They gonna see the juice. All right. CD was saying.
Okay, that is from the Collie Shot podcast.
Rico Dowdle.
Yeah.
Pretty much. All right. Anything
you want to call your shot on that? That'll be.
I think Rico Dowdle is going to finish the year as the Cowboys wide running back 1. That's it. They signed Dalvin Cook, and so they have 2 prehistoric dinosaurs on their team in Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook, who the Jets had on their team, and they cut him, and then he went to the Ravens, and he couldn't beat out Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. So I think that Rico Dowdle is going to finish with the most rushing yards on the Cowboys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think Zeke might go in a LeGarrette Blunt mode and have 15 touchdowns just because he just might be the goal line back. But yeah, I think Rico.
So you're saying you also said RB1. So
RB1 on that team, not not a top 12. I think he will finish the season with the most rushing yards. He'll have the most rushing yards than any Dallas Cowboy.
Okay.
How that does for fantasy, I don't know, but
okay. And we doing a round of golf on that, or
What did we bet the round of golf on last week? Because I just gotta hedge my bets.
It's in my notes somewhere.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, we'll get back to me next week on that because I don't want to make too many crazy bets we haven't even played.
Oh, I think, no, it was the I'm pretty sure it was the Seahawks thing.
Yeah, the 49ers would have more wins. Oh, okay,
Yeah,
that's a dub.
The Seahawks
Yeah.
finish as the
That's a dub.
as
No, okay, I'll just stick with that one. That one's great. That one's perfect. All right, cool.
So you don't want to do this one that you just said?
Nope.
Or you're just gonna have it as one of your shots that you call?
I'm just gonna have my shots that I called, and I'm just gonna tell you I told you so, and I won't take anything from you when it happens because I'm gonna feel bad. So there we go. So unless you got
Nothing
anything
on
else,
and then nothing on that Browns Cowboys game that you were just talking about.
I think that the Cowboys are pretty much running it back. They didn't really make any additions, which is kind of weird because they literally made no additions in this offseason.
Between us, because you seem.
Oh yeah, no,
very happy
I'll
with
take the
these.
Cowboys. I'll take the Cowboys plus 2.5.
I'm gonna write this one down too. Cowboys and take the Browns here. I tried to tell you, bro.
Drew loves Deshaun Watson.
Okay, all right. Say that out loud, right? Yeah, we gotta shut this thing down. We're done here.
Okay,
Great show.
That'll wrap it up. Thank you
Over.
everybody for listening. This has been the Call You Shot podcast with your
Sean
host,
Watson.
with your host, Alex Harris and Drew Moore. We will see you next week to review over all of these great games that happened over the weekend, and excited for football. So, got anything else, Drew?
That is all I have for y'all today. Yeah, that's pretty much it. The paralympics, I said, it is the last week is coming up here, so be sure to stay tuned on that. And yeah, that is it.
Sounds good. Make sure you're tapping in on the social medias. We're gonna have all those up and running on their Instagram, our sports picks, and on our YouTube as well. And where you can hear us wherever you find your podcasts at Spotify, podcast. I don't even know what all the other podcast stations are, but I just use Spotify
Apple,
and podcasts.
We got Google, we got Amazon, we got podcast hosts, we got everything. If they host a podcast, we got it.
Gotcha.
iHeartRadio, we got it.
Okay.
YouTube,
All right.
we got it.
All right, y'all. We'll see you next week.
We got it. All right.